Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravotta, and we are here again for our 16th Wisdom Panel. And I'm so excited to bring this group of women to you today. The topic of the panel is self, and we're going to talk about all the selves. And I want to do a quick introduction, and then we're just going to dive into the conversation. If you're here live, put comments in, and we'll bring you into the conversation. And if you're listening on the replay, tag us with your comments, your questions, your ideas, your thoughts, and let's just keep this conversation going because this one impacts all of us. So I'm just going to start right in with Jen Goldbrand. She's a motivational speaker, storyteller, two-time author, podcast host, coach, somatic healer, and a corporate dropout gone goddess. Ellen Williams is the founder and CEO of The Salient Strategist and host of the Time to Press Pause podcast. Paige Arnoff Fenn is the founder and CEO of global marketing and branding firm Mavens and Moguls. And Adrienne Garland is the CEO of She Leads Media. She's the producer of the She Leads live events and the She Leads podcast network. And her live events are like my favorite events in the world. So just had to throw that in there. And welcome. Let's dive in. Let's talk about the selves. So let's just start with let's see, where should we start? Let's talk about self-awareness.
Great place to start. And a lot of practice and time goes into learning how to be self-aware. A lot of times we behave almost on automatic pilot. I have a quick story. When my kids were younger, I went through come on, set the table, set the table, set the table. Finally, I'm screaming, set the table, and they get up. And I basically trained them to wait until I was screaming to get up to set the table. And I realized that. So the next day, instead of getting to level 10, I got to level 9. And then the next day I realized we were doing it again. And I said, you guys don't want me to scream at you, and I don't want to scream at you. How about we agree that when it's time to set the table, just set the table because you're going to do it anyway. And so that was the day I stopped screaming at my kids. Never had to do it again.
Right.
I think self-awareness comes with age in my case. I think, when you're young, you think maybe it's narcissistic or you're too self-involved, but as you get older, the wisdom that comes with age is like, as you said, Ellen, like you realize like, here's where we're going, here's where I'm trying to get to. And so it's more goal oriented and it's more involving everyone to get them there in the best way possible. So becoming self-aware, I think, is just getting smarter, working smarter, not harder, and just being more comfortable in your own skin and just knowing that you can get there from here in a much better path, a more efficient path, more productive path, and a happier path.
Absolutely. Paige, I was just thinking about that as you were speaking. We walk around, so much of us sort of operating from our head up, our neck up. Everything is being driven by our beautiful brains, but we get so many messages from our bodies. And when we can learn to be, more, I would say, holistically aware of our body and our mind and our spirit, and listen to those messages that we get from our body when things are out of whack, I think that can really help us to avoid that burnout and that stress that impacts so many of us when we're in our doing energy. So I think it's really important to listen to the messages that we get and we receive.
I love that so much. And I'll take it from the entrepreneurial perspective. I always say you show up in your business. And so the more that you can understand, who you are, where you really thrive and where are some of the areas that you might sabotage yourself, or, maybe what it is that you are afraid will happen. If you can become aware and bring those things, out of that unconscious, subconscious place and see it, then you can get past it. Because when you have, those things, they're going to prevent you from making the moves in your business that that you should make. But it's sometimes
Absolutely.
those things that are below the surface that prevent us from doing the things that we know that we need to do.
Absolutely. And being aware of sort of those core values, right?
Mhm.
And what drives your decisions forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding where it comes from too, because you can't really heal it until you understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
So true. And that can take a while.
Yeah.
Right?
Layer by layer.
That awareness of identifying
Yeah.
those things and then unraveling them, right?
Can we talk about that for a sec? Because
Sure.
I think the perception about all of this self work is it's a one and done thing.
Ugh, yeah.
It's a journey.
We wish.
It's a journey and a lifelong process. I think you get smarter with each kind of setback or each twist and turn. You learn more about yourself. You learn more about reading the room and what motivates other people, what makes them tick, what makes you tick. That it is absolutely not one and done.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
No,
I think
it's not
Donna,
marathon. Yeah.
in your
I always
introduction,
say, oh, go ahead.
in your introduction, you said we're going to talk about all ourselves. And how many selves do we have? Right?
So
And how many
many.
selves do we go through over the course of time?
Yeah.
I always say the things that happen to us, they don't define us, they inform us, right?
Mhm.
They help shape who we are today and tomorrow and the next day. Yeah.
Right. And well, let's go. Let's get philosophical, right? So
Okay.
I love this. So, right, is the self, do we have many selves, or do we have one self but many identities that impact the self, right? And
dimensions.
how do we want to think about that?
Yeah. We're multidimensional. We're not one thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
And we have an evolution of ourselves.
Always.
Okay.
Or
right,
an
now,
unlearning, right? if we're always the self, right? And it's there inherently, and we put layers on it, maybe we're just discovering versus reinventing or even evolving. It's just pull away another layer.
okay,
Right? There's all this talk about becoming, right? Sorry, excuse me. But there's always this talk about becoming when really we're having to sort of unravel the societal stuff that we thought created who we are. So it's almost like peeling off, to your point, Adrienne, peeling off the layers to get to that core, that true nature, that essence that is the most familiar, and yet we tend to hide behind some of that.
Okay,
so we're discovering ourselves, discovering instead of evolving.
I wasn't planning on going here today, but it took us all of I don't know, 8 minutes. But this was the biggest lesson that I have learned through all of this. This is, 107 interviews and 16 panels. This is the biggest lesson, is that it's not reinvention. Reinvention is a line of bullshit that's fed to us to make us feel bad about ourselves. And it's us remembering who we are.
Yes.
And that's what it is.
Absolutely.
That is the key to everything. And this self-talk, all of these connections are reconnecting to ourselves, all of these different versions of ourselves. So, it could be in a business perspective, it could be a personal perspective, but as we go through this work, and this work doesn't happen until you're in your 50s. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I mean, you may get twinges of it in the 40s, but you're too busy doing other things. You're too busy worrying about everybody else. But it really starts to happen in your 50s, and it is layer by layer, and each one is a defined connection to some part of yourself that you lost along the way, and you're calling it back. And it's not a reinvention. I said this yesterday on the interview I did yesterday. I'm just going to go back because I don't want to. It's not about burning down the ships. It's about gathering the fleet, and that fleet is all of the parts of ourselves.
Absolutely. So much of it is focused on the external, right? how we're perceived, how we're viewed, how people, do we belong, or are we being understood or misunderstood? And it's all really an inside job.
Yeah.
But I wish we could learn that when we were 16 and not 56. But it's part of the the human experience.
I think younger generations of women will learn this sooner.
Yeah.
It's
but the
happening.
way
It's
that-
definitely happening.
Yeah. But the way that we were raised, this is when we're learning it. And thank God that we are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We
So
were
we can teach it to our daughters.
Yeah, we were raised and conditioned to not trust ourselves. And that played out, at least anybody who's been in corporate, it played out and it was reinforced over and over and over again to not
Absolutely.
trust ourselves. So it's almost
Right.
like until you remove yourself from that situation that you went into, you made that choice, right? I made that choice.
Oh, me too.
But
Yeah.
you don't learn that that's not the way that it needs to be until you remove yourself from the situation. It's like being in a bad relationship.
Yeah. And this is a double-sided coin. Adrienne opens a little can of worms here, but let's go with it. It's this
So true.
double-sided coin of self-trust and self-value.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we all are corporate dropouts, and making that decision is really incredibly hard because when we made this decision, nobody believed in us.
Right.
We just did it, and it's hard. It takes courage and it takes bravery, and we all did it, and we're here. I know we're all here for a long time, not like 2 years.
Yeah.
Our intuition is like our inner GPS, I always say, right?
Mhm.
But as women, particularly, I feel like we're taught to sort of silence that, that voice that should be much more familiar and one that we should trust. But I think that's one of the challenges that we face, particularly if you spend a lot of time in corporate America.
What's the saying? Like in your 20s, you want everyone to be talking about you, and you want to be the center of attention. By your 40s, you're worried that people are talking about you. By your 50s, you realize they were never talking about you and they have their own stuff, and it's not really about
So
you.
true.
But it takes you
Right.
decades to figure that out.
Isn't that so true?
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to touch on, Adrienne had said, you made the choice, right? We all make choices, but those choices are based on the information that we have. And if that information is filtered in a way that doesn't work to progress us, which in some cases was the case, you're making decisions that might go against your gut, but everyone else is saying, no, this is right. And until we get back to that self-awareness and understanding, if it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. And sometimes it's the lesser of two evils, and maybe you have to make that choice. But I think understanding why you're making that choice and what your next step is going to be, and that involves the awareness, and not just self-awareness, but awareness of those things that are meant to not allow you to be your best self.
And
Right.
learning to manage the voices in your head, knowing which voices to listen to and which ones to squelch and say,
Right.
I'm tuning you out. I got this.
Yeah.
I think that's also so important. I mean, what Donna's doing, bringing us all together like this, it allows us to talk about these things and say like, oh yeah, like I experienced this, you experienced that. If we had that when we were younger, we might not have felt so alone and like that we're crazy or rebels,
Right.
whatever it was. So now that we're doing this, it's amazing. It would have been even more amazing to have done that in our 30s.
Yeah.
But Adrienne, honestly, all of us being of the same kind of general age group, when we were younger, in a lot of cases, we were like the only woman or one of a few women. So it was much more competitive. It was hard to collaborate and be collegial, because I think we felt more pitted against each other.
Yeah.
And now we realize there's strength in numbers. We're much more comfortable in our own skin. And
So
I
true.
feel like the magic is when we come together, not when we're
So
pitted.
much.
You know, now we realize the strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're almost taught to compare ourselves and to compete.
Yeah.
Yet we're really designed for collectivism, like to be a part of a community. And
Yeah.
I love that women are learning that now and seeing the impact that we make together. I mean, we're just stronger together, no
Yeah.
matter what it is we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
When I was in corporate, I won't say where, but there was another woman that had a very high position, and she set a meeting on my calendar, and we went into a room, and she set the meeting with me so that she could have a conversation like we're having. And I was very taken aback. I was like, what are we doing? And we set up regular meetings where people, because we are different departments, like we're supposed to work together. And so, if anybody looked at it, it would be like, we're collaborating on what we need to get done. But meanwhile, this meeting was all about like, how can we help each other? Like, I'm sad, I'm frustrated. And it was like such a beautiful thing, because it was like covert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was not, you were going against.
No, but we from the outside, it almost looked like because we did have different aims, like our departments were at odds with one another. So it looked like we're trying to, whatever. But it was like we went so deep and so personal like that. And you also have to be willing to do that. I even though maybe I didn't even have a reason to trust her, I just said, I don't care. I'm going to trust.
Yeah.
And that's just it, is the whole self-trust piece and the self-worth piece. When you kind of allow yourself to go into a free fall with that, it's contagious.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
Yeah. One thing I've learned over the years is to start to see myself through other people's eyes. And I mean that in a good way, right? So when you get the accolades and you sit back and go, oh, I don't know, did I really deserve that? When you get them over and over for whatever period of time and whatever role or job you're doing, I've learned over the years that, okay, other people are seeing me in a way that I'm not seeing myself, because my self-talk is, you didn't do so great. That wasn't all that wonderful. Right. And now I just happily say, thank you. And I still might hear myself go, you could have done better, but that never comes out of my mouth anymore.
You need to learn to treat yourself as well as you treat your best clients or your best customers. Like,
absolutely.
That's when the magic really happens. That's when you really kind of get in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So when I have my groups with women, we talk about how we all have a saboteur, a self-saboteur, who's like living in the dark and telling us all the things that are wrong with us and keeping us small. And then we have our heroine, and that's the part of us who reminds us, everything that you do has a purpose. Every time for example, every time I tell a story about myself and my own growth, I help somebody because it resonates with them, or whatever it is that you're working on at the time. I think it's really important to remind ourselves when we start to go down that rabbit hole, who our heroine is. We're our own heroine, right? In every story. And that simple exercise can help a lot to pull yourself out of that negative place that is only, bringing you down.
I don't remember who said this quote, but I'd rather trust someone and be wrong than never to have taken the risk. And I feel that way. And again, you learn with age, you get to be a better judge of human nature and character, but you are going to make mistakes. You are going to stumble. But again, you're going to recover, and you're not going to make that mistake again next time. And you have to treat yourself with kindness and grace, because you are your toughest critic. There's no question.
Always.
I think that's an interesting concept also, how you treat yourself. I know, in my younger years, that never came up. How do I treat myself? I was just me going through life, and it was how I treated other people. And of course, that's important too. But it was only, pretty much after I had my kids that I was like, wait, I need to treat myself, right? I needed a treat. But then over time, you do understand that you treat yourself as much as you treat anyone else. It's not just you going through everyone else's lives, right? And so that's a real concept on how kind are you being to yourself? Do you need sleep? Do you need to take a break? Do you need a vacation? Do you need a hug? Like, how are you treating yourself? And I think that for me was a pivotal moment when I realized that I wasn't treating myself well because I didn't even have that concept.
Right.
And this is a really important part of this conversation.
It is.
It's like, what happens when we get stuck in toxic self-talk, and like, what's the impact of that? Because we'll say things to ourselves that we would never say to anybody else.
And we would never allow anyone else to say to us.
Exactly. Yeah. How we love ourselves, how we treat ourselves is how we teach others to love us and treat us.
And someone once said to me, self-care is healthcare. And I thought that really struck a chord with me. Like, you want to be at your best so that you can do your best work and bring out the best in others.
So true.
I think
because otherwise what happens? We get so depleted, right? And resentful. Yeah.
I think it's also respecting what comes up for us, which goes back to the conversation about self-awareness. So we might want to, treat ourselves, but then we also have that, the hater, the girl hater that's like, no, people are going to think that you are lazy, or people are going to think that you're not responsible. And at a certain point, you have to care enough about yourself to say, it doesn't matter that someone else is going to judge me for sleeping, because if I don't sleep, then I am going to put myself in maybe a health crisis. Right. And so we have to not only, we have to be fierce about protecting ourselves. And if someone does not understand that, then we really have to be okay with saying, like, that is their issue, not mine. And I think that that's the thing that as we get older that we feel more comfortable with, is saying that's them, that's not for me to hold.
I had a mentor that once said to me, me time is not a luxury or pampering.
Right.
Like, me time is maintenance. That is what you need to do that for yourself, whether it's to sleep, to relax, to exercise, to get a massage, to get your nails done. That is not like, oh, I'm luxuriously, going on vacation. Vacation is not optional. Downtime is necessary to recharge and to reboot and to come back with even more creativity and energy.
Yeah. So true. We talk a lot about resilience. That's like the buzzword now, right? But honestly, if you think about it, resilience is our ability to sort of move through challenges, and our overall well-being is actually so much more about how we learn to recharge, not how we endure all the tough stuff.
Yeah.
It's about recharging ourselves so that we can continue to show up and, make the impact that we're making. But we're not, again, this is changing now, but our generation wasn't necessarily taught that. That was taught, we were taught everything goes external. We're taking care of all of the other people around us, which, to your point, Ellen, we want to be doing, but not to our own detriment.
Right.
Learning how to say no, learning how to set boundaries. Like, that is something as you age, you just get better at, because you know what happens when that's not going on. You are not showing up as your best self.
Right.
Right. The other side of that is, how many of us have taken on other people's stuff, right? Right.
Energy.
That was a requirement in my life.
and, and so, understanding not just boundaries, but understanding that they need to be responsible for their stuff. And me doing it for them doesn't teach them anything. And that was another hard lesson, like letting go, and like I could fix that, but I have these other things I need to do, and they need to learn how to fix that. This is their stuff. I don't have to take it on. That was more recent than I'd like to admit, but that was an important lesson. And sometimes I sit there and I cringe and I bite my lip, but I don't have to take that on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was in my 30s, and I realized that every problem in my life was somebody else's problem, and I started axing people out of my life left and right.
Yeah.
It's a hard lesson.
It is a hard lesson. I don't know. It's funny, Ellen, that you just said that, that's something recently. I think that is like the work that I am still working on, that this is very challenging for me. I feel like part of my personality is the fixer, and the savior. And it's so exhausting.
Yeah, because
I need to.
You learn how to do it all, but that doesn't mean you have to do it all.
Right.
Yeah, but now this is now coming back to the layers, because like
I was just going to talk about
going
that.
through this now. Like I went through this in my 30s. I'm going through this again now. I went through this like 10 years ago. So it comes back. And I think the thing that happens when these lessons come back to you is if you're paying attention and you're aware, you'll see them coming.
Yeah.
And the impact in your life won't be as significant as it was the last time it happened.
Yeah.
But I think you do have to do kind of an audit. And, they say that you end up becoming the 5 people you spend the most time with in your life. And if those people are toxic or gossipy or terrible, that rubs off on you. And so if you need to kind of hit the refresh button and reboot and surround yourself with a higher bar, with better people who bring out the best in you, who have your back, who encourage you and help you thrive. There are, people that were good in your 30s may not be the same people that are good in your 50s and 60s.
Right.
So you have to own that and, continually upgrade and, raise the bar.
Yeah. Surround yourself with people who are going to make you feel good.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about energy and frequency, that's what it's all about, right?
And not just make you feel good. Yeah, but it's not just make. She said the real 50 over 50, but it's not just, it's not just about to make you feel good. It's also about pushing you, like to do the hard thing, to be your best self, to try that thing that you're afraid of, because then like let's take a little trip down to the other side of this conversation, like the fear, self-fear, self-loathing. Like how do we get past that? Because again, they come in layers. It comes back. You think you got it. I slayed that dragon. Oh no, you didn't, sweetheart.
No, you didn't. Well, to Adrian's point earlier, this stuff starts when you're like 0 to 7 years old, right? If you want to get into the central nervous system and our brain and our subconscious and all of those things, which I'm kidding, but that's really, these are stories and narratives that we take on when we're so young, based on our environment, things that are said to us, how our parents are raising us. It's just part of the human experience. But what happens, that's how the layers start climbing until you don't even recognize anymore that these are not real stories. They're stories we've made up, but that we tend to believe throughout most of our life. And those are the things that prevent us, that make us fearful, that have us hiding to stay safe, as I like to say when I talk about telling our real stories, because we feel safer there. We feel protected even if it may not be healthy for us. It's what our system knows and understands. So it's harder for us to go outside of those narratives, to slay the shame, to remove the limiting beliefs, to rewrite the stories, and to kind of reclaim our power. That's part of what this is all about. And this is part of, I think what we're talking about as women who are in our 50s and 60s, look how long it takes us to get to that point of realization of, wait a minute, that was just a story that I took
I was
on when I
fed,
was 6
yeah.
years old, and I was fed. And to this people pleasing, part, which I think we could probably all relate to, this whole idea of we have to prove our worth by rescuing all the wounded birds, or taking care of all the people around us. Raise your hand if you can relate, right? So that takes a while to unravel and to unlearn, because society tells us that that's us, being nurturing, caring people, when in reality we're getting lost in that game. And it
But
takes a long time.
learning how to create your own narrative and owning
Yep.
it, because
Yes.
when you're a child and someone says you're the smart one or you're the
You're
pretty
like, okay.
and you just think your whole life, I'm smart or I'm pretty, but if I'm smart, I can't be pretty, or if I'm pretty, I can't be smart.
Mhm.
And
And then what happens when that smart doesn't work for you?
exactly.
Yeah.
I heard someone once say that smart can always become pretty, but pretty doesn't always become smart. And so really encouraging girls to use your brain, and you are smart, you can do this, you can be creative, you can be a doctor, you can be president, you can be anything. It's amazing what those mantras become as you grow and as you mature.
So
I
true.
have a story. It wasn't my daughter, it's actually my son. So I learned, because my son is older than my daughters. And he was great at debate, right? From a young kid, great at debating with me. And I used to tell him, you make a great lawyer. And as he got older, he had, ambitions that were not a lawyer. And I used to say, you would make a great lawyer. And one day he looked at me and said, how come you never tell me I'd make a great video game designer? Because that's what he really
Right?
wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
heartbroken, like, oh, I'm a terrible mother, right? And from that moment on, all I told him was, you're going to make a great video game designer.
Yeah.
And now he's a doctor.
Nah.
I love it. And let's give ourselves a break, right? Parents are just humans, right? We do the best we can, and we don't even realize some of these, limiting beliefs that we're putting on our children.
Yeah.
Right? We don't do it on purpose. It's like
No.
what we were taught. We kind of pass it all down until somebody breaks it and says, wait a minute, like your son did. Wait a minute. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Mom. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
my
awesome.
daughters, what do you want to be? You'd be great. Yeah. And I want to get back to, someone had said, surround yourself with people who make you feel good. And then I think Donna said, well, not so much feel good, but push you. And I would extend that to be not just feel good, but feel like it's okay for you to go the path you're going, right? To take on that fear, to take that risk, that these are things that are okay to do, and that you'll help support them. So I don't necessarily have to feel good, but I have to feel, safe.
But there's a role for people who are cheerleaders. There's a role for people who are butt kickers. There's a role for people who hold you accountable. You need all of those people in your world. You don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of people who stroke your ego and make you feel good all the time. We see what happens in the world when those people come into power.
Exactly.
We want people who hold us accountable, but again, push us so that we achieve everything that we are able to accomplish in our life, to push you out of your comfort zone, to give you the confidence to say, yeah, I can do this. Or, you know what? I don't know where it's going to lead, but it's so worth trying to see where we go.
Exactly. You said it better than I did.
We all need a tribe.
Yeah.
Good job, Paige.
Community.
And it's again, like that group that you have around you, at different stages of your life, it's not going to be the same group.
Right.
Absolutely.
And mentors too. You need different types of mentors at different stages in your career. You don't necessarily get a mentor, early on and keep that person, as your main go-to, decade after decade. They're people that bring in different strengths and different realities to help you blossom and grow. And, it's not that you forget about those people. You can still maintain a professional relationship or a personal relationship, but don't think that, again, we talked about one and done. It's not that like things get frozen. You are constantly evolving, you're constantly growing, and you need different types of people as you mature and grow, personally and professionally.
I think it's especially challenging for, women, Gen X, right? Gen X women, because I think that we are highly intelligent and capable, multidimensional, and we are thinking about what we can create for ourselves in the future, and it doesn't look like it does today. And I think that we need someone or something to, instead of us using all of our good energy to fight against what is, we need to set our sights on what we can create. And I don't think that we've ever gotten the chance to do that. And so as much as we have all of this energy toward like, yeah, we need to do something new and innovative and different and that respects our lives and, how we live and how we think, we don't really have like a role model to look up to, because it's all based on like stuff that's come before. And we're the pioneers, and we have to have that fear. Like, it's going to be there. We're not going to get rid of it, because I think it's like kind of deep. But if we can live alongside of that fear and know, it's going to be there, I don't like, it, but I'm going to move forward anyway. Right?
Did you see the movie Beautiful Mind?
Yes.
Yeah.
The story of A Beautiful Mind is that he hallucinates and he acts on that, and eventually he identifies through self-awareness that he is hallucinating, and that took him a while to identify what was real and what wasn't. And toward the end, spoiler alert, toward the end they say, do you still see, the people you hallucinate? And he said, yes, I just choose to ignore them. And I think that that's part of what we're talking about when, we have, dark light, we have the angel devil, that's all within us. And what we choose to focus on is how we, rediscover who we are, right?
Yeah. And to what Adrienne was saying, like, we're doing this transformation, this like, constant evolution in a time where there has been so much change that, like, when we were growing up and when we went to school, when we were learning things, everything is so drastically different than what it is now and where it's going. So we are like this bridge between not only generations but centuries and the evolution of technology. Like, I tell people I went from carbon paper to AI, and it's legit, so like there is a giant rift there too. And like how we were parented by people that, with the best of intentions, used what they had. They didn't have what we have now. They didn't have the feedback, the information, the studies. They didn't have any of that. And like, the way that I have been starting to think about things, and it's really helped me move through some like big changes, is looking for the evidence. Particularly when I'm dealing with something about being afraid, or like, really get, stepping back into that comfort spot where I feel safe. I start to look at the evidence of where this worked. And it doesn't have to be what I'm doing, just some part of it worked. And I can kind of latch on to that. And like when I feel like I'm drowning, that's almost like a life raft for me. It's like, okay, somebody else did this, I could do this.
Yeah. For sure.
Sometimes all you need is like a vision of like success. And even though it might be a different goal, a different challenge, the fact that, you know, somebody could make something similar work, maybe just the kick in the pants you need to just dust yourself off and try again and keep pushing. Because I think all of us probably realize there are a lot of people in our life who did not stick with it enough to make their businesses succeed. And we just kept pushing. We just kept getting up, dusting ourselves off and doing it again and again and again until we figured out a way to make it work. And I think it was Ellen that was talking about resilience earlier. You know, that really is one of the key traits of successful entrepreneurship, that you just don't say no. You just keep going.
It is the biggest personal growth experience imaginable.
Yeah.
Whoa. So does anybody want to share a story of how stepping into yourself made an impact in some way, either for you personally or for somebody else?
I think what's really funny when I look back on, you know, my 2 decades plus of entrepreneurship, I wrote about this for an article in Entrepreneur early on, that, you know, starting a business is a little bit like dating, because the more that you push, the more that you try to be what they want and, you know, attract clients, attract a mate, it's like the faster they run in the other direction. And I think, you know, once you realize, like, here's my sweet spot, here's what I'm really great at, here's the kind of business and clients and work I want to attract, this is really my strong suit. Once you find that goal, once you find that space and you set goals to really play in that sandbox, people find you and people refer business to you and you kind of thrive. Like all of a sudden you found your lane and you are just owning it. And when you get to that point, that's when your business really starts to scale and thrive. And I feel like, you know, I was pushing. And then all of a sudden, once I kind of found my inner strength and the stuff that was really core to the business I wanted to build, it was like a magnet. People were being pulled towards me. And I can't urge people enough to say, don't try and play in someone else's lane. Find your lane. And once you do, that's really when the magic happens.
Absolutely.
I love that so much, Paige. And it just brings up for me, it's like honor and respect for yourself and love, right? Love for yourself. And that is something that we need to learn how to do that we weren't necessarily taught. So that maybe that's the practice.
But we're all old enough to remember that commercial, is it live or is it Memorex, you know?
Yeah.
And you want to be the real deal, like what's live and authentic to you. When you find that, it's magic. Like, you don't want to be the copycat. You don't want to be the me too. It's the old Oscar Wilde quote, like, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. When you really own who you are, what your strengths are, what you're great at, what's in your wheelhouse, and you do it better than anyone else, own it, thrive. Like, that's it. I remember when I worked in corporate, which all of us have that experience, you know, you'd go to your annual performance review and they'd say, like, here's the things you're good at, but here are the things we're going to work on over the next year for you to get better at. And I used to hate that, because I was like, if it's not something I'm naturally good at, and it's always like forcing that ball up the hill, I'm probably never going to be the best person doing that. Why can't I do the stuff that I do the best, that I am like in the zone? Let me take care of that and let somebody else do the things that are just not like good for me. And I feel like when I started my company, I really took that to heart. Again, the buck stops with you. Everybody does the work. that they love most, that they are better at than anybody. And if it's something that you don't like doing, I will find someone else to do that piece that loves that. And when you do that, the clients can tell that everyone shows up at every meeting with every project, like in the zone. And that is contagious. That is magnetic. When people feel like I am killing it every day, I love this, that comes through and it becomes part of your brand. Like that's what people remember. That's why they come back.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into exactly what I had mentioned earlier, is believing what other people say, right? And not letting yourself go, well, I'm not really that good. But when you continuously hear other people saying, you're really good at this, you're really good at this. Now, if you don't like doing it, that's a different story. But if you do like doing it and you're just telling yourself, imposter syndrome, right? Oh, no, that's not me. I just lucked out this time. And I had plenty of that self-talk. To the point where, I would just be doing the work and all of a sudden people would be like surprised I was able to do it, because I never had the confidence to say I was able to do it. So I think there's a marriage there of, yes, I like doing it. I'm not telling myself I'm the best, but other people are starting to tell me that. And you need to start listening to the way people see you, and it can be a lot clearer than the way you see yourself. So if people are saying you're great at something, you actually enjoy doing it, move in that direction and try to get rid of that negative self-talk about something that people are telling you you really are very good at.
Right.
And let's remember that a lot of that negative self-talk is not necessarily something that we even believe about ourselves. There's a lot of insidious messaging that comes through the media and just the way that systems are that get in. It gets in, it permeates us without our opening the door to it. So sometimes these negative, words, thoughts, or whatever, they're not ours, right? So we have to know that, like, wait a minute, we have to question, where is that coming from? Is that truly me and my soul? No. That's something else. And I choose to reject it.
Yes, absolutely. Be your own heroine.
Be your own heroine, and know that your heroine is not mean.
Right.
So almost always, if there's some negative thing coming in, question, is that me? And maybe there's something that you need to pay attention to that you might not be seeing, but just know that we have, like, what is it, 60,000 thoughts a minute or something? I don't even know what it is. Like, that sounds crazy. But know that they're not all coming from your beautiful heroine soul.
Right.
And ask yourself, would you accept that? Like, would you say that to someone that you respect and admire? Would you accept someone that you care about saying that to you? No, you wouldn't. So don't let yourself do it if you're not going to accept that from other people in a similar situation. That's kind of a reality test.
And don't
so true
either, right? Like it's like all the noise on the radio. Like, you have the choice to tune into that channel or not. And the more that you don't tune in, the hopefully less that chatter will come up.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to self-compassion, which I know we've talked about, but self-compassion is what saves us from that sort of self-sabotaging place that we go. So when we learn to speak kindly to ourselves, like the way we do to others, that's how I think we build our resilience. And we remember that, failure doesn't stop us. It fuels us. It keeps us learning, and it keeps us growing and evolving and expanding, which is the fun part of all of this.
And sometimes you just need kind of like a habit or a practice that helps you kind of reboot. And maybe you need to take a walk. Maybe you need to meditate. Maybe you need, to go get a cup of coffee or drink a glass of water or whatever. to say, you know what, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a beat and let me see how I feel in 20 minutes. Like, don't let yourself go down that rabbit hole and get so far in that you can't get yourself out. And I find that if you have kind of a process to like, okay, this is when I need to hit the pause, or this is when I need to hit the reset, it can make all the difference in the world.
I love that, Paige, because we're so busy, right? We're thinking about what's coming or what happened. But if we can stay in the moment, in the here and now, because that's really all we have control over, right? Is right now, here and now. And if we can pull ourselves back into that place and take that pause and take that beat and, breathe for 3 minutes, it just changes your perspective on all the noise that you were talking about, Adrienne, all the things that are swirling around and distracting us. But coming full right here in this moment is super powerful, that mindfulness.
Yeah.
It takes practice.
It does.
It does.
I did this human design thing because I'm so curious just about like a million things, everything, all the woo-woo, like bring it on.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
It's so much fun.
We should guess what everybody is.
So one of the human design things that I am, and I'm so bad, I don't even remember like exactly, but one of the things that has stuck with me is that, I get all of these messages, like I'm open to like all of this stuff, and I have to like process it somehow. And I've been given like the instructions on how to do that. But the thing that really stuck with me is that what is for me will never miss me, or something like that. And so that gives me a lot of peace around the fact that I don't have to be so hyper, and that I don't have to like, oh my God, if I don't do this, I'm going to miss that opportunity. It gives me peace. Like what is for me will not,
Pass me.
What is it?
What is for me will not pass me.
Well, right. I can't even remember that.
Right.
So yeah, but it gives me like this peace. Like I am not going to be pressured by other people and their timeline, because I got my own, and it is solid.
Yes, indeed.
And again, that comes from age and experience. You just realize you can't let other people define your persona, and you can't let their parameters dictate yours.
Yep.
Exactly.
Good stuff.
So what's your human design, Adrienne?
Oh, geez.
Do you know? You're a manifesting generator or a generator? Do you know?
I believe that I'm a generator, and I also have like this very open thing on the top here.
Your crown.
Yeah, it's wide open. So I get tons and tons of ideas, but they're not all for me.
Right. Downloads. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you guys know what you are? I'm a projector. Do you know?
I don't even know what y'all are talking about.
Oh, look it up. It's humandesign.com. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, you say it's woo-woo because of course we like to say things are woo-woo, but people are now using it to understand their team members. So their children. So because we're all wired differently, right? So you can get your human design done for your children and figure out how to best communicate and parent them. You can do it for your team members, your direct reports, and learn, oh, this person processes information like this versus receive, it's so fascinating.
Yeah,
in the old days, it was like Myers-Briggs or Enneagrams or whatever. And this is like the new generation, which I haven't caught up to yet.
It's so much better.
It's very cool, though.
I'm a 4-1 manifester.
You're a manifester, yeah.
Manifest.
I operated my whole life thinking I was a manifesting generator, but I'm actually a projector. I was at it. I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Yeah. So there's 4 different types, but then within that, Adrienne was explaining, you have different energy centers, right? And they're all, some will be closed, some will be more open, and that just kind of makes you more unique in terms of how you show up. It's pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, I've used it with my son. He doesn't know it.
Yeah.
But,
Donna.
It's super helpful. It's super helpful.
It is, because we're both
You can all go on
manifestors.
and get
But
your whole.
yeah.
You'll get a whole chart with all this information, and you'll be like, oh, "That's why I do that."
Mhm.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and when you really start to learn about the gates, it gets really
Yeah.
um,
Woo woo, gone.
You'll have inspired me. I'll go figure it out after
this
the
is a whole other call. All right, so we've got
Oh,
5 minutes
oh
left.
gosh. Yeah.
So let's go around and drop a wisdom bomb, something to leave people with. And as we go through that, I'll put up your website so people can see how they can get in touch with you. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
I would say the most important relationship that you can ever have is the one that you have with yourself.
Yeah.
So when you embody that, you really embody your true nature, your essence, free from the limiting beliefs, free from the shame and all that self-doubt, you can create I guess I'm going to call a ripple effect of growth and success that benefits you, but also everyone around you. That would be my wisdom for today.
I think
Excellent.
for me, it's about creating an ecosystem that really brings out the best in you, that surrounds you with people that really challenge you and build you up and have your back so that everyone can thrive, that they're not threatened by you, that there's, I just feel like the most positive experiences personally and professionally are around people who really get you and love you for you and see the chinks in the armor. They see the warts and the pimples, and they love you anyway because they really understand at your core that your values are aligned and that, you really want the best for them and they want the best for you.
Love it. Beautiful.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that too. Don't be afraid to be yourself. A lot of times I would show up with clients being who I thought they wanted me to be or they expected me to be. So certainly you have to bring a level of professionalism. But I've learned that I can bring my whole self. So I can bring some of my quirkiness and some of my sarcasm. And if it's not a good fit, then it's not a good fit. Then that's not the right client for me. But the clients that appreciate who I am, not just my skills, but me as a person, then that's a much better strategic relationship that we can be honest with each other, learn from each other, and move the needle for them.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is so good. All of the wisdom. I think of one word that is almost like a guiding just principle in everything, and it's love. I actually heard all of you even say love, right? So love ourselves, love our clients, love our work, love our lives. If we can use that as our like beacon, right? Always go back to and start from love. You can't really be regretting anything.
Mhm.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Well, that's
What did those Beatles say again? Children of the 60s. All you need is love.
Donna, you're amazing. You're like
You
one degree
are.
of awesome people. This has been such a fun panel. And as you said, once we said go, it just took off and brought in a life of its own. So thank you for connecting such amazing women.
It does that.
Such a great opportunity. So beautiful. Thank you.
Donna, what's your wisdom?
Yeah.
My wisdom is that I'm just going to keep doing this. Some days
Very
I feel
important.
like, why am I doing this again?
Yeah.
We've all asked ourselves that very question. That's when you flip that saboteur and tell them to go away.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to keep doing this. What I've learned in the 2 years of doing this is that I'm the person that lights the torches. I'm the person that shows the way. And through a collective sharing and openness and vulnerability, the ripple effect is immeasurable.
Mm.
It certainly is.
So beautiful, Donna.
Bravo.
Amen.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
thank you all. And we're coming up on March, which is going to be the 2-year birthday of the Real 50 Over 50. So we've got a bunch of stuff in the works, which I'll announce soon. So stay tuned for all of that and connect with all of these incredible women. If you go to our page for this panel, everything is there, and it will be updated with the video and video shorts and quotes and all kinds of things. So, keep engaging with that page and keep engaging with these women because they're making a difference every single day.
Thank you, Donna. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, and more to come. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll be back.
Thank you.